Hi, I'm Arthur Moats, and I'm joined by the one and only Craig Wolfley to talk about everything that's been happening around the Pittsburgh Steelers as it pertains to free agency and roster moves. And just from the last time me and you were up here talking, we've had a ton of moves as it pertains to the Pittsburgh Steelers, being able to sign some people, some very impactful people to contract extensions. But before we deep dive into those guys, we got to start with the most important one, which was Kevin Coburn. So Mr. Wolfley, talk to me about the significance of Kevin Coburn being able to get his extension that will take it all the way up to the draft following next season.
You know, Kevin Colbert, and good to see you, Arthur, as always.
Always good to see you, baby.
Kevin is one of those unique cats who has brought such a dynamic to this organization over the near, 20 years or so, how many years he's been with the Steelers now. He has brought such a unique perspective and brought such a great group of guys and formulated a great organization around him. And you see the effects. I mean, week in, week out, year in, year out, you have an organization that is ready, willing, and able to compete on just about any level whatsoever. And it's because of this man who has done so much in the drafting and trading and whatever, picking up players, rebuilding rosters. He is really, truly a terrific guy. In my mind, he's a Hall of Famer. Someday will be or should be, as far as, GMs and stuff should be able to, be involved.
Well, I absolutely second that right there, because for me, I'm a product of Kevin Coburn. He was one of the guys that found me through free agency in 2013, 2014 season as I was transitioning from inside linebacker to outside linebacker. Kevin Coburn is a great person in terms of identifying talent, whether it's via the draft or through free agency. We've seen him, build up this roster in multiple ways, but the end result is always success. So I think, man, in terms of the significance of re-signing people, knowing that you're going to have him for at least another year is huge, because he is the heart and soul. He is the orchestrator behind all these moves that have been made to get this team to where it's been thus far.
No question about it. And I love the fact they made sure they signed him through the draft. Okay.
Yes. Which is huge. Which is definitely huge, because we know as it pertains to the draft, I mean, we could go down the list of the different styles of philosophies, right? Best player available versus drafting positional needs. But we know Kevin Coburn has his method, and it's a method that has been working. I mean, especially when you look at these most recent draft classes, you look at what he just did a year ago, right? During a pandemic where scouting was a little bit skewed, where the combine was skewed, pro days were skewed, all these things had asterisks beside it, but he still finds Chase Claypool. He still finds Alex Highsmith, Kevin Dotson. I mean, you can go down the list of rookies that came in and had significant snaps, and that was solely because of the efforts that he put in. And that's why, to me, knowing that you're going to have him through the draft is very significant.
Excellent.
Yes, indeed. Now, the next guy that, pretty much dominated the airwaves all weekend with his signing was Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, how could you not love the kid being able to come back? He had offers to go to other places, but decided to turn them down to come here to run it back one last time with Ben Roethlisberger. To me, I think that's very significant. But, I always want to hear what your thoughts are on the young guy, man, in terms of him being able to come back.
You love a guy who's got the inside playing skills, the flanker, slot position, whatever you call it, the ability to read with the quarterback. He's got a mind meld. You got to get that ESPN thing going where you see the field, like the quarterback's seeing the field. And he does, and I know there's a lot of people that are beefing about the fact, well, his catch, yards per catch were down a little bit. Well, dadgummit, you know what? If you look at the route combination trees they were running last year, they're a lot shorter. There was not the need of going downtown. Let's remember, he's had 2 97-yard catch and run TDs. Two, folks. I mean, that says something about it. There's speed, and then there's competitive speed. And Arthur, you know this, okay? As a player, you know this. There's guys that in track suits, boy, they're a flash. They look great. Once you put the ball in their hand, or once you get the pads and helmets on, their speed isn't quite so great. That competitive speed.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, how many times have we seen guys, they run 4.3 on paper, but they get the ball in a game and it's like their legs stop working. They forget how to run fast. I actually had the honor to be in the stadium for Juju's first 97-yarder against the Detroit Lions, man. It was my last year here in Pittsburgh. And we would always get on him about his speed because that was the knock on him, right? Great combat catch guy. very physical, does all the dirty things, but at the same time, he lacks the top end speed. So when he went 97 and we're looking at the guys that he outran, we're like, yeah, Madden, y'all need to go ahead and adjust his speed because you don't go 97 in the NFL if you're not fast. But as a whole, man, when you think about what Juju brings to the table, I mean, he is Ben Roethlisberger's safety net. How many times on possession downs, how many times in gotta have it situations, he looks to Juju, right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, we can get into the details of, well, man, maybe this guy was open instead of that. But at the end of the day, his comfort is in Juju, and Juju rewards that comfort and that belief in him by consistently making those catches, consistently doing the extra things. One of my favorite plays from Juju a year ago was at the beginning of the year against the Giants. We fumbled the ball late in the game, and he's the guy, you know, beating everybody to the ball, diving in the pile. I'm like, this is a contract year for this guy, and he's putting it all on the line on a play that has zero impact for him. But to me, when you see that type of effort, that type of love and passion for the game, I thought it was significant to be able to retain him, to keep him here, because that's contagious. The other guys in that room, they're going to look to him and they're going to say, well, hey, all right, when my turn comes to hit free agency, I'm going to look to Juju and see how he turned down, you know, more lucrative offers, but said that this is going to be the best fit. This is where he wanted to truly be, and understand the significance of that.
You know, you're exactly on, Arthur. And one of the things I love about it is that he's going to be that veteran guy now, though he's so young, in that room of wide receivers and set the tone. And one of the things he's going to do is set the tone of toughness. You know, we've seen Hines Ward. We saw, you know, Hines changed the rules of the game. He's that tough.
Definitely did, man.
That from Juju at the same, you know, in the same level. So having that sort of guy in the room is huge. Seeing that production on the field is ginormous, and I think you're going to see more of it with this guy. And by the way, I thought it was a great move by Juju because, let's face it, there's something about catching balls from a Hall of Famer. I'm just saying, yes. Okay, it's good for your career. So, good pick.
Hey, without a doubt, it's good for your career. And you can't, you know, make up for that rapport that they have, that time spent. You know, these past couple of years, they've been putting down that foundation. They've been building to where they are right now. And if you're Juju and you knew that it was going to potentially be a one-year deal wherever you decided to go, why go on a one-year deal and now you have to start rebuilding with someone else? You have to learn them. They have to learn you. You have to build that trust. You have to elevate your play so that way the coordinators would think that you should be the guy that plays are designed up for. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore now that he's staying in Pittsburgh. He has familiarity with Matt Canada. He knows Coach Tomlin. Like I said, him and Ben's rapport is great. So I just think that this is going to be a situation where it pays dividends for him both in the short term and in the long term.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, my friend.
Yes, indeed. And like I said, man, this segment right here, we got a lot of action because the Steelers, they've been busy, man. They've been doing what they're supposed to do, retaining some very high quality players. Another guy that they were able to re-sign was Zach Banner. I mean, we know what Zach Banner was able to do early in the year. Obviously, he went down, but he had beat out, you know, Chooks to become the right tackle to start that opener against the Giants. And now being able to get him back under contract, I think, man, is just another good opportunity because he was a guy that once he got here, you can see how he bought into that system with Coach Tomlin. You can see how he bought into the system with the coaches that were here, you know, in terms of Mike Munchak, in terms of Sean Surratt, in terms of Adrian Clem, all these guys that have been able to have some level of impact on him. You can see it starting to pay off for him now. So to me, I definitely like this signing as well. But what about you?
Love it because, you know, we saw the young man come out and change his body, transformed himself.
Definitely
he believed
did, man.
in himself, and he got aggressive. He understood and realized the great attributes and talents that God gave him, and he's using them on the field, and he had a great preseason. I loved it because here's the thing about it. You know as well as I do. Iron sharpens iron, right? Okay, You think about it. Who was sharpening that iron? Well, that was T.J. Watt with Zach Banner. And I remember early on, T.J. was starting to he was taking it to Zach, right? But Zach fighting, and he got better throughout camp, and you watch it happen. And I love that. That's a great story of resolve and determination and perseverance. And Zach Banner displayed all those qualities, eventually making sure to secure the starting assignment. And like you said, against the Giants, unfortunately, had the knee blowout. But one man's misfortune and another man's fortune, and that gave him the opportunity to show what he could do. So now you've got these two behemoths that again will come back and be at it, in training camp. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen yet with Al Villanueva. He's parts unknown, that sort of thing. Yeah. But for myself, I love Zach Banner, and I love the hard work and perseverance that he brings to the table.
Yeah, for me, man, I love the fact that, number one, when you think about the pedigree of athlete that he is, I'm a big believer in having athletic tackles, guys that could have played other sports. And when you think about Zach, he was a college basketball player for USC. Think about what that says. That is an athlete, man. So from there, understanding how, yes, he had the situation where he got a little bit bigger than he would have liked to, but to see how he could come here, refocus, get his body where it needs to be. And now you're going to take that great athleticism, but on a better body now, and give him this opportunity. To me, I just think that this is a low risk, high reward thing, because the beauty is this, right? You still have flexibility if you're not a believer in Zach Banner 100%. You still have the flexibility if you wanted to draft a guy, where now you have Zach as a guy who's going to compete for either starting spot, right or left tackle, or worst case scenario, he becomes your sixth offensive lineman. And if that's your sixth offensive lineman, you're doing really well. You're in a great space right there. So to me, I just think that this is that scenario where you really can't go wrong. And if it pans out where he's able to be your left tackle or right tackle full time, well, now that's even better because you have him on a very, very team-friendly deal. So to me, I just think that from all standpoints, this is a good situation.
Not to mention the fact that guy can swallow you whole at the edge setter on the line.
Oh,
he can walk guys off the line of scrimmage. A running game, baby, a running game. So there you go.
Listen, I know if anyone loves road grader style offensive lineman, it is you. But trust me, I'm from the old school era as well, man. When you dropped that flanker reference, I was like, whoa, I haven't heard that in a minute. But yes, I love that. Give me the big physical, offensive lineman up front, man. And that's what Zach definitely is. If you've ever had the luxury or pleasure of being in his presence, that is a massive man.
Yes, he can out-eat me, that's for sure.
Without a doubt. Now, another guy we got to talk about that was able to get re-signed as well, Cam Sutton. I mean, how about that? And obviously, everything that's transpired of lately with some of the releases on the back end, this is a significant, very significant move, being able to retain his services. This is another guy that was a mid-round draft pick, right? In terms of being the third round pick in that draft. That was crazy when you think about TJ Watt, Juju Smith-Schuster, and James Conner all in that same draft as well. But to see Cam Sutton be able to get this deal done, I thought was another just really good move to be able to keep some of these in-house pieces like Cam. Cam, throughout his career, it was a little bumpy at the beginning, right? He had the injuries his first 2 years. He really, struggled to kind of carve out that role. And then obviously you had Mike Hilton, who was in a similar role and was flourishing. So Cam at a time, he was the forgotten guy, but throughout these past couple of years, he's done such an excellent job of just carving out that role, showing his value to the point where they not only had him in the slot, but they would put him on the outside. They would bump him back there at safety. To me, I just love that versatility that he brings to the table. And when you look at the numbers of the deal, it's very team friendly as well. Well, he'll still get his compensation, but for the team, it doesn't hurt them too much from a cap standpoint either. So for me, that's how I kind of viewed it. But what about you?
Well, I love it because it's a return to the days of yore, such as a Deshae Townsend, when you had the Deshae playing the slot on the inside, and then later on he took over on the outside. And the fact of the matter is, you can see where the possibilities exist of getting maybe a James Pierre. You got who's the other cornerback?
Justin Lane.
Yep. Justin Lane. Okay. We call him just in time. Justin Time. Lane, to have the opportunity to excel out there when Cam Sutton, if you go and move him to the inside nickel on third downs or things like that, whenever the down and distance is good, then you might see these young guys be able to, get out there and do something. And I think James Pierre kind of got a little leg up on Justin Lane towards the end of the season. But the fact is, Cam Sutton's got all those great skills. He's got, safety eyes. He's got slot cornerback, nickelback eyes. He's got outside, inside, whatever. He sees the field. And when you have that ability, it's interesting what defensive coordinators can do with that.
Yes, indeed. And trust me, you talk about the defensive coordinator here in terms of Keith Butler. him and obviously Mike Tomlin's stamp on this defense, they're going to find numerous ways to make sure that they put Cam Sutton in the best position as possible. But not just Cam, the other guys you mentioned as well, in terms of James Pierre and Justin Lane. I just think that when you're able to keep versatile, high-end pieces like Cam Sutton, it just unlocks the capabilities of what you're able to do from a defensive standpoint. And this is what you want. I mean, when you're creating your roster, this is why Kevin Coburn is who he is. You find these type of players and you keep them at all costs. But at the same time, you know when it's time to give another guy opportunity. And we're going to potentially see that with some of these younger corners as well, just based on some of the moves that have been happening, throughout this week. But I really like this Cam Sutton signing a lot.
I will say this. I hope that Mike Hilton left his cloak of invisibility in Pittsburgh when he starts coming off the edge and gives it to Cam Sutton, because that stealth mode that Mike Hilton had, man, that was good stuff. And I'd love to see Cam be able to, get some of that blitzing done like, Mike Hilton did.
Without a doubt. I mean, he's a player that we're definitely going to miss in terms of Mike Hilton and his departure. But yes, man, I haven't seen a player just have that knack for timing the snap the way that Mike does. I mean, literally, it's like, he's the blitzer.
Yes.
But for some reason, he always comes free. It's crazy to see, man. But yes, hopefully that definitely rubs off on Cam Sutton and anybody else in that secondary that will be utilizing a similar role. But yeah, definitely, like I said, man, this is going to be a good opportunity for Cam Sutton right here.
No question about it. I think he's another really positive addition. Makes me look forward to what's going to happen this year. Hey, it's not going to be easy coming off a COVID year when you've got 19, you started off with 19 free agents. You've got a lot of shuffling to do. And the Steelers, of course, are working their way through it. And it's, again, coming off a reduced cap COVID year. This is kind of like it's uncharted territory. So
without a doubt,
there's a little bit of troubled waters, but they're making their way through. And you got to make some hard choices. That's all.
Yeah. And speaking of those hard choices, we saw that play out this past week with two releases happening within Steeler Nation in terms of linebacker Vince Williams being released and cornerback Steven Nelson being released. Obviously, both of those guys were very significant in their roles here. Obviously, Vince being a homegrown guy drafted here. Always love my 6th-round brothers. That's my guy right there. But you think about the impact that both of those guys had on the defense, the snaps that they played. I mean, that's very significant in terms of pieces that are going to be gone. But on the flip side, you spoke on this earlier, them leaving, right, opens up opportunities for other players. And another guy that we were actually able to get re-signed was Robert Spillane, which I think is going to be great when you talk about these opportunities, when you talk about guys like Vince Williams being released. Well, now a guy like Robert Spillane, who had a ton of success when he was out there last year, he's going to get an expanded role, which, like I said, for me, I just love seeing guys get that opportunity to prove themselves, an opportunity to shock the world, so to speak, because I was one of those guys. I was a guy that, man, when I came here in 2014, I was sitting behind Jarvis Jones and Jason Worlds, and I was the unknown. But it took, an unfortunate circumstance of a guy getting hurt for me to get that opportunity. But then I ultimately was able to prove myself and continue to grow in that role. And I look at Spillane in a similar fashion. I'm like, man, some of the things they say about you, I remember them saying about me. You're not the best athlete, but you make plays. Hey, you're a smart guy. He didn't go to the biggest school, but he's productive. Those are all the things that you want. Those are all the things that you need. And I just feel like that is such a Steeler thing right there, right? The blue collar, not the glitz and glamour, but a guy that's going to come here to work every single day and give you his best. I just love that element right there.
Especially the fact that you got a guy like Bobby Spillane, right? Robert Spillane, here's the thing about it. Who better takes advantage of limited opportunities than Spillane did last year when he had the pick six, right? And he had the Derrick Henry heart attack hit, right? I mean, that's just like, the kid's a legend, in a very short period of time, because that hit itself was, as I've spoken about so many times. But, when you're around as long as I've been and you see some of these hits, these big hits like this, you can't help but say that's in the conversation of some of the best all time I've ever seen. So good that you got Spillane. You're going to have Devin Bush. Yeah, you got a guy from Detroit, Killebrew. Right, they put him into the linebacker mix, and like you said, he's one of those core Tyler Matakevich type of special guys. You're going to have some opportunities for these guys to grow. I'm sorry for Vince Williams. Love the guy. You know, it's the way the circle of life in the NFL that happens.
Right.
But Vince had spent great years here and was a great leader and was really one of those guys in the huddle that you really look for, you know, is one of those guys that kind of pump guys up in that. So, you know, it's unfortunate. Steve Nelson's another guy that, you know, it's unfortunate that you're not able to keep him. But again, this is coming off a COVID year and you have to make some hard decisions.
Absolutely. A COVID year and where the salary cap went down. I mean, this is one of those times where you never account for that. Not only, I mean, you never account for a pandemic, but you never account for the cap flattening or taking a loss. And that was one of those things that put the Steelers in a bind. Not just the Steelers, a ton of teams have been going through similar situations. So it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. But in times like this, where it's a lot of uncertainty, where you know you're going to have to make tough decisions, I always lean on the trust in Kevin Coburn and Mike Tomlin because of their track record. They typically have done great jobs when they've had to make tough decisions on different players, different elite players throughout this time. I mean, you think about it, right? We've seen marquee guys have to exit via free agency or have to exit because of a release or whatever it may be, but they don't let that knock off the train of success. No, that's where the next man up mantra started, right? And I don't think that this is going to be any different. I think that when you talk about a guy like James Pierre, we saw him get the next man up opportunity and we saw him do well in it. You talk about a guy like Robert Spillane. We saw him get the next man up opportunity. We saw him excel in it. It's funny how when you said the circle of life of the NFL works, think about how Vince Williams got his opportunities. It was when Lawrence Timmons would either have to miss time or Ryan Shazier would miss time. Vince would get opportunity on defense, started to make more plays. And then that role expanded. You think about me, mine happened from an injury. I got that opportunity expanded. Robert Spillane, similar situation. It's the circle of life, man. You play this game long enough, you're going to either, you know, be the guy taking the veteran spot, or you're going to be the guy taking the veteran spot, or you're going to be the veteran getting your spot took. But it's how it goes. I mean, you just say you're fortunate when you get to the veteran element of it. That's when you know you've lived a good life as it pertains to the NFL, because we know the league average from a career standpoint is short. So to see these guys come in and play this long, to be surpassed by a younger player, it shouldn't be looked at as a slight, more so as a badge of honor.
There's no question that opportunities come quicker nowadays in the NFL because of the way the contracts are situated in the salary cap situation. So you better be making some marks on that field very quickly, because you're not afforded the ability to be able to just sit around and not contribute. You've got to be a contributor and you've got to carry your own weight. And certainly it comes about, you know, early. The opportunities come early and often many times. Or, you know, if you don't take advantage of them, is like I said, my old college coach once said, man, you know what, when that train comes around, better be ready to get on board, because if you're not ready, it may not come around again. So, you know, those opportunities come. And for other guys, we got some other guys coming up that are taking advantage of those opportunities.
Without a doubt. And a lot of that starts with what? Your offseason prep. Now, this is the heart of the offseason. Now, I say the heart of the offseason because when I was playing, this was the heart of the offseason. I know when you guys played, it was under a different calendar, so y'all might not have been as deep in the offseason just yet. But with that being the case, we know how significant offseason training is, offseason workouts, and things like that. And it just had me wondering, because I know you are the expert when it comes to strength and conditioning, when it comes to lifting weights, when it comes to doing all these acts of just physical beastness. That's where you come into play, Wolf. So when you were training back in your playing days, did you have a favorite off-season workout?
Yes, one of my favorite off-season workouts was pushing cars. You say, what, pushing cars? But yeah, brother, let me tell you something. You get yourself an old beat-up 72 Chevelle or whatever, you know, bashed in front. I started when I was in college. I started doing this. And it's funny. It's an awkward date night when your front door is bashed in on the right side. So your date has to go through the left front door. You know what I mean? It's one of those awkward things. So anyhow.
Funny thing, I've experienced that.
Okay, good. So you know that awkwardness. So here you are, you push a car, and what's great about it is it gets you into position and ties all your strength, all your limbs together in that effort that you need to be able to recreate every time you run block. You come off and it gives you that leverage. When you want to accelerate from a dead stop into the car, being able to locked up with it and push it, you've got to find the proper leverage points. Well, it's the same thing when you're locked up and you're run blocking a dude. You put your forehead in the man's chin, you rip the rack to the chest, and you just get that 4-wheel drive hammock power just going away. You hunker down dog and get after it. And that's one of my favorite off-season conditioning was to push cars, even to the point where I was down at the end of the park where I live, right? And I was training just before I go into training camp, doing the car pushing and stuff like that. And my neighbor sees me, I'm pushing the car up a hill, and then I sit on the front bumper and walk it down. And he's there, and he thinks I'm out of gas. So he yells out, "Craig, I'll be right down with the gas can." Comes running down, and he kind of looked at me weird when I said, "Oh no, I'm not. The car's not out of gas. I'm out of gas. I'm sucking wind there." That's what I love to do, was pushing cars. It really got you ready for the violence necessary to run block in the NFL.
I love that, without a doubt. And I like the fact that it's more of the functional element of it too. It's different than just a bench press or a squat rack. This is stuff that will actually help you and apply to you when you're doing your day-to-day football things from a practice standpoint. So I love that element. For me, when I would, my off-season favorite workout would always happen right before training camp, usually the end of June, beginning of July. We would take a trip to California where my wife is from. And right by the beach, they have these sand dunes, and it's just mountains of sand. And I loved it because I was a big fan of the legendary players growing up, right? Your Jerry Rices, your Walter Paytons, and all of these guys. The thing that they would always do was what? Run hills. They would always talk about running hills. So we were like, well, man, we know that sand, when you run in sand, it typically is a lot harder because every step is as if it's your first step. You don't really get the luxury of building up momentum. But then you take that sand, you make it a hill. I'm like, oh, I get the best of both worlds here. So literally every year before training camp, I would go out there. My brother-in-law, who's a trainer, we would get to run on the sand dunes and do full just position workouts right there on the sand dunes, cutting, backpedaling, sprinting. And it would suck. I mean, it feels like every rep, your leg's about to fall off, right? And the higher you go, the harder it gets. But the beauty was when I would come back and it was time for training camp, I never would feel tired. Like my legs just felt great the whole time. And training camp, that's the one thing you want. You don't mind the bumps and the bruises, but you want to at least have your legs feeling good because you do so much running during that time frame, and especially with the positions that I was playing. But being able to do those sand dunes, man, coming back, like I said, it just made me a better player. I was in great shape. I always felt faster coming back, and it really helped prolong my career, especially on the back end of it. So that was my favorite thing to do during the offseason. And for those that are wondering, do I still do it? Absolutely not, because I'm retired. I'll never do it again.
I'm with you. Last time I pushed a car was when I was a young buck.
It was fun. I enjoyed it. It looks super cool when you're running and you got your wife and your children. They're looking like, Dad's a beast. Take your shirt off.
All I can tell you now is I call AAA when I'm out of gas.
Yeah. No, I don't even want to look. It's a hill. Can I drive it? Can we walk around it? I don't want to go up it. I'm good. I'll pass.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
Oh, man. Well, Wolf, as always, it's a blast. Anytime we get up here and talk everything happening around Steeler Nation. So if you're okay with it, man, we should do this again next time, huh?
Oh, I'm always up for it. Good to be with you, my friend.
Yes, indeed. Well, look forward to it and look forward to seeing everybody next time. And as always, here we go, Steelers.